Welcome back, everybody, to another podcast. The NFL draft's coming up next week, and I know that people have been wondering, Michigan fans always wonder, how many players, how does the draft stack up for the Michigan guys? And Michigan, even though the results haven't been there recently, it's been kind of rough. I'm not gonna lie. We we still produce talent every single year. Last year, 10 guys won the draft. The year before that, 7 or 8, and this year is no different. There are multiple first round players on this team and many that are potential NFL draft picks. So let's just start talking about these guys because honestly, while the team struggled last season, there's still quite a bit of talent that will be heading off to the NFL. Starting with Kwity Paye, number 19, defensive end, um, born actually in Guinea, Africa. He has a great story. Um, his mom, there was a war in Liberia, Africa in the late 1990s. His mom fled first to Sierra Leone, where she gave birth to his brother, who now plays on New Mexico State, and then she fled Sierra Leone and to Guinea, where she gave birth to Kwity Paye, before they moved to Rhode Island, where he grew up and blossomed into a star defensive player or star football player. Sorry, um, at Bishop Hendrickson High School in Rhode Island, in Providence, Rhode Island. He was a physical specimen even in high school. He ran a 4.5 40, won the Rhode Island State long jump and 4x100. So he was a quick dude and he was athletic. He could jump. He was explosive. And he played running back. He was the defensive player of the year in Rhode Island. He was a great running back, gaining over 800 yards for his high school, and initially committed to Boston College before decommitting and going to Michigan. At Michigan, look, I'm not gonna lie, he disappeared a little, but I've heard from experts, I've read that he was underutilized by the defensive system at Michigan, um, which generally, I don't know, I feel like defensive ends at Michigan actually are underutilized slightly. Rashawn Gary's another example of that. Um, but yeah, this dude, just because the production wasn't quite there, as you see, 2 sacks in 2020. He only played 4 games in 2020. He played the entire 2019 season and had 6.5 sacks and overall better stats in 2019. So don't be fooled by these stats. His 2019 stats are what you should look at. But this guy's an outstanding worker, great work ethic. Everyone loves him outside the field. He majored in African American studies and Afro studies, so he's a smart guy. He's going to work his butt off at the next level, and I believe he should go in the top 15, if not top 10 of the NFL draft as one of the top defensive ends in the country. Jalen Mayfield, 2020 wasn't the greatest year for Jalen Mayfield. Started the year before the season as Michigan's best draft prospect, according to the experts. Kwity Paye passed him up, basically because Kwity Paye had a great pro day, I forgot to mention, ran a 4.58 40, showed some other good things regarding his strength and explosiveness. Jalen Mayfield, though, in 2020, didn't play very much, only played 2 games, but 2019 he started all 13 and proved himself to be a good offensive lineman, especially defending the pass blocking in particular. Strong, but also decently quick. Just an overall good offensive lineman. I think that the experts say he could play either left or right tackle in the pros, but right tackle seems to be where he's getting put at most. And he initially in high school, in Grand Rapids, he was a D lineman, racking up tons of sacks before switching to O-line, bulking up at Michigan. He went from 245 in high school to 320. So he put on tons of weight, which is really going to help him. Once he gets used to that weight, he will become a great offensive lineman. He's projected late first round, early second round. And yeah, both these guys, I will say, you could be forgiven for not really knowing much about them as a Michigan fan, especially in 2020 when neither of them made much of an impact, combining to play 6 games. Nico Collins, another guy in 2020, you'd be forgiven for not knowing who he was because he didn't actually play on Michigan in 2020. He initially opted out of the 2020 football season due to COVID concerns and other stuff like that. Actually, he declared for the draft because the Big Ten wasn't even playing football. When the Big Ten decided to play, when Michigan was vocal in that decision, he said he wanted to come back, but he'd already accepted money from his agent, and unfortunately that meant he could not return to the FBS Division I football. So he stayed out 2020 season, prepared for the draft, had a great pro day, good broad jump, good height, and good hands, as well as a 4.43 40-yard dash, which placed him in the top 20 of all players in the recorded 40. So that's really impressive for a guy who's 6'4", 215. He's known more for his physicality and hands than his speed, actually. At Michigan, he was never much of a burner or a route runner or a slant guy. He was a guy who you'd throw up one-on-one and he would make the aggressive catch. He'd make physical possession catches. So that's kind of his go-to move. Reminds me of Devin Funchess Little, another tall Michigan receiver. Obviously, you see those 2019 season stats. He was the Michigan Offensive Player of the Year that year. 37 receptions, 730 yards, 7 touchdowns. He was a beast that year, and he would have been really great in 2020 had he been able to come back. But alas, he couldn't. He's probably going to be a third, fourth round player, possibly sneak up to the second round. I'd be surprised though, especially because he didn't play in 2020, and his speed is more like 4.5 than 4.4, even though that's what he ran in the combine or the pro day at Michigan. Cam McGrone, Indiana native. He's actually a big Ohio State guy, but Michigan won his commitment. He was a 4-star, 118th overall on 247. He was a really awesome high school player, put up tons of sacks, put up great tackle numbers, and he did tear his ACL as a high school junior, but that hasn't been much of a concern. He's quite quick. I didn't get to 40 on him. I couldn't find it, but I'd guess 4.6 speed, maybe mid 4.5. 2019 was his best season at Michigan. Had 65 tackles, even though he didn't play for the entire year. He really jumped into the rotation after the Wisconsin game. But after that, he was an anchor for a Michigan team that actually had a relatively solid defense that year. 2020 wasn't his best season, and I've heard that he was playing through an injury for most of 2020. But he has the tape to be a good linebacker in the NFL, especially on the run defensive side of the ball. Pass D, not the best. Didn't have any interceptions. Not really much in the way of pass deflections either. But run defense, especially on the other side of the line of scrimmage, he pressures the running back and the quarterback quite well, and he would be a good modern-day linebacker. Little small, 6'1", 236, could afford 10, 15 more pounds. But otherwise, I think he's a good prospect. He could go anywhere from 3rd to 6th round. I'd put him at 4th or 5th. But I do like Cam McGrone. I thought, especially in 2019, he filled up the field on Michigan on the defensive side of the ball. Ambry Thomas, this guy didn't play again in 2020. This is a common theme. You see a 2019 season stats. 2020 decided to opt out, like Nico Collins did, and prepare for the draft, which is fine. I don't think it hurt him too much. He was projected as a top 45 guy before that, so it actually did hurt him. He did fall a little bit from that peak. He's more of a 4th, 5th round guy now, but he has great intangibles. 4.37 speed, up there in the top 10 of all players in the draft. He ran that as Michigan Pro Day. He has decent size. He's 6 feet, 183 pounds. Maybe add a couple pounds to match up with the more physical NFL receivers, but he's a great coverage player. I will finish this later. I gotta go, unfortunately. We'll finish this later, though. Peace.